Hey guys, welcome to the Flip Lab. Today I'm joined with Tonny Romero. So for those of you guys that don't know, kid's 22 years old, well, grown man, 22, but started wholesaling a few years ago. He just threw on a major event out in Milwaukee, and he's just killing the wholesale game. I know I met him through the Closure Olympics.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And yeah, welcome to the Flip Lab, dude.
Thank you, man. I appreciate all the hospitality while being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, tell the people kind of how at 22 have you built up this wholesale business and really built up all this momentum these past few years?
Yeah, so I started back, well, I guess I could tell a quick little story. So I went to an event. I was a very big fan of Shark Tank, and I went to an event where pretty much Kevin O'Leary was the face of it, and I showed up, and there were some amazing sales guys there. I'll never forget how great they were at pitching and really everything, their entire situation on stage to build up to that pitch. And then I ended up paying $1,000 to go to a 3-day event. After that 3-day event, we got upsold to $30K, actual mentorship for about a 3-day weekend. And I was going to do it. I put $5K down. But then I did a lot of research and I couldn't find anything solid on them. So I ended up not going through with it, let some other people know. They ended up going through with it, and it turned out to be pretty much not so great information.
Yeah, he was out here in Phoenix doing that. A few of my friends are like, you go into this? I'm like, I'm good on that one, bro.
Yeah, it definitely, pretty much it was a scam, in my opinion, and so
yeah.
I didn't see any success stories from it, and I couldn't find anything solid online either. So after that, I kind of just gave up for wholesaling for a little bit. And then I was just hanging out with some friends one day, and one of my buddies asked me, hey, do you want to come work for me? I have a wholesaling company. And I said, sure. So I showed up. It was just him and a buddy. And they put me on a dialer. They said, hey, we have to go walk a lot of properties. We'll be back, but just hit this dialer and ask people if they want to sell. No script, no anything. And it was mojo. It was really crappy leads,
sure.
Especially now knowing the entire system from start to finish. It was really badly set up. There was definitely no structure. I was just kind of sitting in his home office. But regardless, I was still pounding that phone. So I remember the first call I ever did, I got wrecked. I mean, that guy destroyed me. He was like the most savvy guy I could probably that I've ever spoken to. And I couldn't hang up the phone. He had me going for like 3 minutes, just like calling me names and, all this rejection. So I really didn't even know how to lay it out. But after that, I learned to put a kind of a script together, and I started to understand, based on different conversations, what I should say, what I shouldn't say. And eventually I started to become good at cold calling. I did do 2 deals with them. I really didn't know exactly what the entire process was. All I did was bring in the cold call lead. That was it. And it was it was like maybe 2.5 weeks that I was working with them. And after that, COVID hit. So when COVID hit, I studied wholesaling for about a couple weeks. And I was quarantined with my parents. And then in June, I decided to start my own business, get my own office. My mom wasn't using her current office because she was quarantined. So I was like, hey, can I borrow your office for a little bit? It was a pink office. It had 8 rooms, but it was at my stepdad's building. And so from there, I started cold calling. I kind of understood a little bit better what I had to do, and 4 days in, we got a pre-foreclosure lead, walked the property. It was a crazy deal because I was ready. As soon as I saw the property on the outside, I was ready to offer $45,000 and make a good. I knew I could easily sell it for $5K or for a good $5K. And when I got in there, the seller only wanted $25,000. And so
I always say don't make offers.
Exactly, because you never know what their number is going to be. And so I'm glad I didn't make that offer. Now, I always tell this when I'm on stage. That guy wanted $25,000. We ended up giving him $30,000. He had some lawyer costs involved, things like that. So we wanted to help him out. And if I went back to that deal, I'd do the same exact thing again. And so from there, I found 3 investors. I found a few investors. 3 of them actually showed up and walked it. We had an actual showing. And one really lowballed me. One needed to talk to his wife, and then one gave me a pretty solid offer, about $50,000, and I brought him up to $55,000. And now looking back, I let that property go at about 50% of ARV, so it was a really good deal for him. But you kind of live and you learn, and so now we've grown from it. But that was my first deal, made $25,000, and then from there started my entire business because I had never had probably more than $1,500 in my bank account. And so I started hiring right away and building a team right off the bat.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like, that's what I always tell people. It's like you're one phone call, just one situation away from finding a big rip like that and being able to just kind of take off everything. But, you know, people talk a lot about like, you know, what systems are you using, what cold callers, all this stuff. But I want to more know, because I think all that stuff, like, look, it all works.
Yeah.
You know, be consistent with it. But I want to know, like, a guy like you, what really inspired you as a young 20-year-old to start venturing out, do your own business, get an office, start growing this thing the way that you have?
Well, that's a good question. Now that I've been on a few podcasts, every once in a while I get a pretty off-topic question that I haven't been thrown at, and that's a good one. So I got kicked out of high school. I got kicked out for a really stupid reason. And then it was a pretty bunch of devastation to my parents. You know, it was a very high-end high school, you know, $13,000 a year to go there, private Jesuit school. And so it was senior year. And then I ended up getting regular jobs. I already had regular jobs since I was 16. I was always a hustler. I loved hustling. Like, I'd sell churros, I'd flip shoes, I'd flip everything I can get my hands on.
Yep.
I'd go to Mexico for a summer, and my parents would send us all the money we needed, and I'd still go and flip popsicles and bread in Mexico, just because I loved the feeling of hustling and, you know, and flipping things and making that profit and seeing that kind of structure to it. But my bad.
No, as far as like how did you kind of, what really sparked it to, like, you know what, from getting kicked out of high school to now just a few years later, you know, you're running a 6-7 figure business all yourself? So
one of my biggest things is I really wanted to find something, and I knew real estate made money. And I feel like that's a lot of people that when they're starting to get into real estate or looking to get into real estate, some people don't even know what real estate is. They don't even care about it. They have no interest in it, but they know it works. And so at that moment, I wasn't in love with it. I really didn't know much about it, but I knew it worked. And so throughout the process, I ended up loving the process. I ended up loving real estate and what came with it. So I like to say I found my passion by kind of going into it.
But I think your passion, too, was, like, flipping. Like you said, when you were younger, you wanted to flip a bunch of different random shit. But I always say the cool part about flipping real estate, it's like, it's the most expensive flip.
Yeah.
You know, you could be passionate about flipping shoes, and that's cool. You can make some money, but you got to flip a lot of fucking shoes to do $1 million a year in profit compared to something like real estate. But the process is kind of the same.
Well, once you get a check, you know, $25,000, it's like, it's hard to look back from that. It's literally, it's completely life-changing, because when I broke down how much time actually went into that deal, I mean, we probably put like 4 hours in, you know, and so I was making like $7K, you know, an hour. And so it was very obvious that that's the route I wanted to go. And I knew that now that I had done it once. That's why I love when people get their first deal, because it's proof of concept. And now it's no longer something that you see everybody else doing. It's now something that's happened for you, and that it's money that goes straight into your bank account and nobody else's. And so after that first deal, I knew that I understood the process. Now I just had to replicate it and make it better. And I knew that, well, one thing as well is, like, I hired a team right off the bat, and that was because I knew that it worked at that point. And so I knew that I was young, and if I risked everything, even if I failed, I still had time. And still to this day, it's kind of that same thinking, you know, I don't have any kids, and so I'm able to take that extra risk, and I'm able to work harder and longer hours right now and try to get to the top as quickly as possible, so that when that time comes, I don't have to sacrifice as much.
Yeah. People always say, it's like, isn't that a risky thing to do? It's like, shit, man, you're like a young dude. If everything failed or something, you go bankrupt, you'll be okay.
Yep.
Right? Worst case scenario, what? You move back with the parents, don't want to maybe do that or whatever it is, but like you learn from it and you move forward. But not taking that risk and then living a boring ass life for the next 30 years, it's like, that's pretty risky too.
Yep. Now that I've experienced all the cool things, like, you know, I like to buy designer. I like to do what I want when I want. I like to not have to look at a price on anything. And so now that I live like that, and I can, you know, take a last minute trip to Arizona and come back in 2 weeks, it's really hard to go back. Like I always think about it, and and there's nothing wrong with people wanting to live a regular life, but I talked to a few of my old buddies, and they're like, yeah, well, I'm going to be a nurse, and I'm going to be making $70K starting, and so I don't know if I could survive off $70,000. I mean, I don't know if I'd have the life I really wanted to, and so now I've been able to create that.
Yeah, and that's where I think it's important to find that right vehicle. Like if you want to make $1 million a year and you decide to become a nurse, like probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's not like the people doing it well aren't living that type of life. So I don't think it's as much like where you have to be in love with real estate, but when you see the lifestyle and it's like the road to get to where, you can make 6-7 figures a year.
Yep.
I think barrier to entry, like I think wholesaling is probably the best business to start if you're a young person, you don't have a lot of funds to get to your first $1 million or to get, making $250,000 plus a year.
It's a very easy business, especially now that, you've done the business, I've done the business. We can easily look back and say, like, wholesaling is really a very, very simple process. It's super simple, especially once you, like, getting that first deal is the hardest piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
After that, it becomes easy because now somebody can bring us a deal, and if let's just say 53218, it's our hottest zip code in Milwaukee. Let's just say somebody brings us a deal, it's a JV deal. We already know our buyers. I could literally call or text 3 of our buyers and it's sold just off of 3 texts, and now we made a lot of money from it. So
right.
The process becomes so much easier because you start to recognize who really wants to buy. You start to build all these relationships. Your leads start to close. I have students that have come in and try to learn from me, or people that have come up and they ask me, like, I don't have enough leads coming in. How am I going to bring in acquisitions? And they're not keeping all their follow-up leads. I know you guys are pretty big on follow-up.
Yeah.
And you have to follow up. A lot of people just throw away leads, or the seller says, hey, call me on Monday, and they just kind of move it out to the side, and just everybody's trying to find the deal that's going to close now.
Right.
And if you just, like, I'm sure that they're within a process, let's just say somebody's wholesaling, and they've been wholesaling for maybe a month and a half, but they're just trying to find the deal that's going to close now. I'm sure that within that month and a half, they have leads that could have, at that point, been deals if they would have just continuously followed up with that person and built that relationship.
Right. And I think it's like following up with the right types of leads too.
Yeah.
Some people think, like, if the guy's like, yeah, I want 400 for it and you need it for 250, and they keep calling that dude back like every month.
Yep.
And it's like, that guy's not coming down 150K probably, unless something crazy happens. But it's the person who the situation's good. Yeah, I have a family member, they've been living there forever. It's going to take a while to get them out. But whenever it's time to sell, they're going to need to sell to someone like you.
Yeah.
And I think those are the ones you really have to focus on, following up with. So $25K that first deal. It sounds like you didn't spend it all on popping bottles and going crazy.
That was later.
Right? So then how did you kind of go from there? And what does your team look like today?
So from there, in the beginning, not gonna lie, there was a lot of up and down. There was a lot of, I'm glad I put in the time I did in the beginning. The first 6 months, it was just pure. I know people have seen, like, now I've grown, now I can do a lot of what I want. I can do all this extra traveling stuff, but it was a huge grind for 6 months. There was no partying, no hanging out with friends, just straight business. It was crazy. I don't know why I was doing this because we had the money for it, but we'd, my team would be done with their day, and all of a sudden I'd vacuum and clean and Windex the entire office to make sure it was good for the next day. Or we have our own personal bathroom and shower, and so I'd clean all that out. So I was always just making sure that it was about the business all the time. I'd stay there super, super late. There were days where I'd literally sleep there. I have a couch there, so I'd just sleep at the couch. It wasn't like a crazy amount of times, but there definitely were days where I'm like, I'm here so late, I gotta be here so early, I might as well just stay here. So it was definitely a lot of grind to, like, really get it. And I would hire the people because I knew that delegation was important, but then it's hard. I went about it the wrong way. I tried to hire friends, kids that were in college, kids that were in high school that were making, $7.25, $10 an hour at Panda Express or at different regular jobs. And I knew that they didn't necessarily need a lot of money to survive. They didn't have a huge family that they had to really hustle for. And so it was good because my payroll was, it was good because my costs were so low, or there was less risk involved for me, but we weren't going as fast, or as we weren't building an actual business right from the get-go. So a lot of the first couple months were really just kind of trial and error. It was like hiring people, firing people.
Yep.
And then whenever I'd fire somebody, I'd go into that position and I'd just hustle within that position and put in the extra hours. But we didn't have processes, we didn't have systems. So if let's just say I brought in a dispo and then all of a sudden he didn't work out, and I just trained him for 5 days straight, I'd have to hire another dispo and I'd have to retrain that entire person again. So now we've implemented those systems like videos and written processes so that you know exactly what needs to be done as soon as you're coming into that company, into our company. And so that's kind of, the struggle that we had to go through in the beginning, and also just not knowing how to pay people. I mean, in the beginning, I was paying people a lot of money. I mean, I had acquisitions guys making like $15K a month, or $20K a month, and our assignments weren't like crazy.
Right.
So the gross was nice, but the net really wasn't.
How much you were taking home wasn't
exactly
as pretty, and that's the number. It's like everyone talks about how many deals they're doing, but it's like how much are you taking home?
That's
really
the
the
very
most important part.
question. Like, people don't ask that. I wish they would. It wouldn't sound as sexy, but it's real.
People say it's like we only did 20 deals last year, but we did over $1 million net because
wow.
We have no employees.
Yeah.
But not saying that's like the best way long term, and like we just got an office, we're going to start scaling a little bit.
Yeah.
But people should definitely be focusing less on like how many deals they're doing, and everyone wants to see the DocuSigns and like crushing. But it's like if you have massive overhead and you're paying high commission employees, you're doing a lot of work and not making a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
So how many employees do you currently have versus like VAs that are just cold calling?
So right now we're up to 10 VAs.
Okay.
We're planning on bringing even more now. I have an additional set of VAs that work for the event that we put on and the mentorship company. But just within the wholesale businesses, we're at 10 VAs and then 4 acquisitions and 1 dispo.
Okay.
Right now we are in the process where we want to move virtual as much as possible. We have done a good amount of virtual, and now we really want to tap into the virtual market because we see so much opportunity in other places. I know you have a pretty good model of doing, business in other states, and so
yeah.
I've, followed you along that side, and a lot of other guys who are doing it, like Nick Perry, and so it's now that we've become successful at it and we understand it, and it's kind of like in the beginning it was a scary thing because we weren't sure if it was going to work out, we weren't sure of the process. But now that we've done it, and it's even in our own backyard, we're doing stuff where we're not even seeing the properties anymore. We're kind of ready to take that step.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest challenge in virtual markets is just the dispo and really knowing how to underwrite. Like people send me deals all the time, people that live out here, and they'll come across a lead in New Jersey, and they're underwriting it the same way they would dispo a deal out in Phoenix. Dudes in Phoenix are buying at like 85% ARV.
Yep.
In New Jersey, like we're not even looking at if it's like 60% or lower. So it's a very different market, and I think the best way to do it though is like linking up with legit buyers in a virtual market, and then they'll kind of tell you how to really underwrite those deals.
Well, one thing that's really cool about you is that you really keep your content really raw. So I've seen your Instagram reels, I've seen your podcast, obviously I saw you in the closed Olympics and your comments behind it, and I wish more people knew about you. Obviously there's a lot, but I wish even more people knew about you because you keep it very, very real. And so what I mean by that is you guys are just going for the solid leads that are going to make the big spreads. Like you said earlier, like if the guy wants 400 but that ARV is 300, it's just not going to work. And a lot of people, especially when they're getting into the business, a yes is everything to them. And then they waste their time on it. They lock it up way too high. They're scared because now they don't know how to cancel it, and they don't want to get sued. And, they just wasted a whole 3 weeks trying to find a buyer, and everybody just rejected them. And so now you're going for stuff that I'm sure you guys are, when you guys do wholesale, I'm sure you guys are selling them within a few hours to a day or two.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're flipping it, you're just anxious to get in there because you're going to make a lot of money on it.
Yeah, I think that's, an important part. And I think when you carry that mindset too with sellers, you're going to get bigger deals because just the psychological dynamic of like, yeah, bro, like go sell it to someone else. Like, I don't really care. And then they're like, wait, but like, I have a problem. Like, I need you to buy this house.
Yeah.
And just, I always say like we don't have customers, we don't have clients, we don't have a product or service that we are selling. we are fixing their problem.
Yeah, I like
so,
that.
So I think when you take that dynamic and shift, especially a lot of salespeople that try to get into kind of that acquisitions role, they're used to selling products.
Yep.
So they have to convince someone, and it's like, no, you should be convincing me why you're going to sell me a house at a discount.
Yep.
Because I need to buy it cheap, dude. You know.
Yep.
So I just think taking that mindset changes the game a lot. Now, are you working in your business at all? Like, are you on the phones? Are you going to seller appointments?
Yeah, so I still handle a good amount of it. We've been the piece that we're still trying to like fully, I guess the final piece to everything, which would kind of push me off, what do we call it, outside, not working in my business anymore, is bringing in that transactional coordinator. We've been through 3 now. Sometimes they just can't keep up, and then there's other reasons to it. But
Wholesales get tough, man. That's a lot it's a lot going on. You definitely need someone good though for that position.
The thing about us is like there's so much distress in our area that we're getting a lot of deals, but we have smaller assignments. Let's just say 5 to 12,500. So they're very small. We flip them very quickly, but we're doing a massive amount of deals at once, just because there's so much distress. Everybody's looking to sell, but then again, it's like we have to make the numbers work. Our market is very hard to wholesale, and people think it's very easy. It's very hard. Thankfully, we're in a position where we know our buyers very well, so a lot of wholesalers bring us a lot of JVs. We do a lot of JVs on top of everything that we do. But it's a very, very hard market because, our average MLS is probably like 120 to 150.
Yeah, we marketed to like our first year we did a little virtual, and we were in some markets where it was like that, where like super low ARVs.
Yeah.
And dude, acquisitions was easy. Everyone's like, oh yeah, take that thing for $6,000.
Yep, literally.
But the problem was there were so many deals where the price didn't even matter. No one wanted that deal.
The area.
So yeah, just no one wanted it at all. Like in Phoenix right here, dude, any lot burnt down, cracked in, like it don't fucking matter. Like someone is going to buy it.
Yep.
But in other markets, I especially learned in those low ARVs, it's like, okay, I buy it for $9K, but it's worth 60 and it needs 75 to be fixed up.
Yeah.
It just the numbers don't work. So I guess that's a challenge, right?
I was looking at Manny Cash's Instagram today, I think it was, on his story, and he was walking a property and like it needed it was gutted, but on the outside there was nothing. There was no drywall, there was no siding from the outside. You could see right through the home, and I'm like, shit, we would not be able to sell that in our market because again, it's kind of comes back to that. It's like, who really wants it? Like, do they like the numbers? They're just so crunched. If we did a 70% ARV minus rehab, we'd be at a negative number.
Yeah, and it's like, who wants to do a 85K rehab to make 15K?
Yep.
That's not exciting really to anyone.
Right.
So you're doing that. Where do you see yourself going over the next few years? Because right now you're pretty much just wholesaling, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to venture into the other parts of real estate investing now that you've kind of built a good track record of wholesaling?
Yeah, so we just had an event. My partner's huge into the development side, and so I'm trying to invest a bit with him, see how that goes, and then learn a little bit more about the syndication side. I kind of go back and forth. I'm like, are we ready? Are we not? It's not really more so about if we're ready, because I have great people around me and I have a good network. But is it the right time for it, or do we continue to scale the wholesale business to get to a really, really solid number where we're doing? I ideally like to get to like those $300,000, $400,000 months like everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say everybody else, but anywhere from 75 to about 120. Okay. So we're still close to that 6-figure mark, but we don't always hit it. There are a few months where we do and we go over, but not necessarily. Like last month thing, we only did like 75.
Yeah, sure.
So still some low months. I guess low, right?
I mean, dude, I say like do $1 million in something before you like go into a new category of like real estate.
Yeah.
That's the advice I've given people, just because that shiny object syndrome is real, as far as, you're like, yeah, this is cool, like I'm wholesaling, I'm making money, and then you want to start something completely new.
Yeah.
But like development has very little to do with the skill sets that you've learned through wholesaling.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of sometimes stick in your lane for a while, and it's okay if it, like, dude, you're a young dude, right? It's like if you don't get into development until you're 30 and 8 years from
Probably
now.
what most people do anyways.
Right, like you'll still be like the young developer Tony, like crushing the game. So like especially someone in your position, you have time. And I think we just live in a world where everyone wants everything right now.
Yeah, we're definitely always rushing. We see everybody else doing all this crazy stuff on social media, which we never know if it's legit or not. You know, that's
Social media, man.
it's another story.
Don't believe everything you see.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of people I see posting flips that they definitely aren't even doing, or things that definitely aren't happening. It happens all the time, but I think one of our biggest obstacles or struggles that I've been dealing with for a while now is trying to really go into another market heavy. I think Milwaukee has been good for us. I think it will continue to be good for us on the JV side because it's easy. We know our buyers and we can pop stuff off really quick. But I think that I try to think of like Texas, for example, all the time. I really want to get into Texas because I feel like with the same amount of effort we're doing, same amount of time we're putting in, and maybe a bit more leads, but literally the same amount of time we're putting in, I think we could 3x our assignment fee. So if we're doing $500,000 in Milwaukee, I feel like with that same effort, we could be doing 1.5 in Texas. I just see the assignments are bigger. There's more opportunity. I could bring. It's harder for me to do the salary side to it because our assignment fees don't make like a killing, so I can't really do salary plus a tiny commission because I really don't know if maybe an acquisitions guy isn't going to do so hot in a certain month.
Yeah, no, totally. And there's different challenges in every market. It's cool. I live in Arizona. We do some business here, but most 99% in New Jersey, and the market's going to be any different. And there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
So I just think it's but I think doing what you did and starting in your own backyard is where everyone should probably start.
Yeah.
Just because you kind of have a competitive advantage, being there. So, know you got a short trip here. If people want to find you, where should they hit you up?
So at Instagram or I guess TikTok too is at the Tonny Romero. So TheTonnyRomero. And then Facebook is just Tonny Romero.
Sweet, man.
Yeah, man. Other than that, it was a pleasure being here.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for coming to Arizona, and I know you're talking at a few events, so I'm sure I'll see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.